I came home to find giant pumps roaring by the edge of my property, thick black hoses slithering down into the lake that had been my wife's memorial. The water was vanishing, turning into a swirling current of mud and dying fish. And there she was, the new HOA president, standing with that smug clipboard like she'd just conquered something. She thought she was draining a pond. She had no idea she'd just shut off the backup water system for the entire county, or that she'd just given me the reason to turn the valve. My name's Tom Blake. I've lived in these mountains for most of my life. I built that lake with my own 2 hands 30 years ago, a spring-fed reservoir engineered to perfection. It was the project my late wife Eleanor and I did after I retired from the county's water department. She picked every stone for the shoreline, the bench under the wild dogwoods, everything. After she passed, I spread her ashes right there. That lake wasn't just water, it was her memory. Then came Malene C.R., the new HOA president. She was the kind of woman who thought power came with a clipboard and a condescending smile. One Tuesday morning, she showed up at my door with a notice that said my unregistered body of water was a flood hazard and had to be drained in 14 days. I laughed, thinking it was a mistake. I told her I built it myself, professionally inspected every year. She nodded like I was some kid telling her about a science fair project. "The board's decision is final," she said, and walked off. I called an old friend, Frank, who used to run the county planning office. He told me flat out, "Tom, they can't touch it. That lake predates the HOA. They have no jurisdiction." Relief washed over me. This was just a rookie power trip. So I gathered every permit inspection soil report, everything into a neat folder. I was ready to bury her in paperwork. 2 days later, I came home from the county office with a fresh copy of my property plat and heard it. The deep, throbbing hum of an industrial pump. My stomach dropped. I ran down the driveway and there she was again. Malene standing proud beside a rented pump truck watching water pour from my lake into a storm drain. The water line had dropped 4 feet already. Trout flopped in the mud. Eleanor's bench sat alone on cracked dirt. Malene turned smirked and said, "You were non-compliant, Tom. We had to take action." I didn't yell. I just stood there holding all my perfectly organized documents, suddenly meaningless. I stared at the dying water, then at her. My voice came out low, steady. "I told you not to wake the water." That night, the story was on the local news HOA acts to protect neighborhood from flood risk. Malene looked like a hero. I looked like an angry old man clinging to his dangerous pond. Neighbors stopped talking to me. The county wouldn't take my calls. Everyone just wanted the story to go away. I sat by the empty basin, feeling hollow. 30 years of work gone. My wife's memory violated. For a moment, I questioned everything. Maybe I was too stubborn. Maybe I should have just let it go. I was tired. I almost believed it wasn't worth the fight. Then, Sarah came by, my next-door neighbor, retired history teacher, sharper than anyone I know. She brought sandwiches and that look that cuts straight through your self-pity. "That woman is a menace," she said. "What are you going to do?" That's when it clicked. I couldn't let Eleanor's lake end like this. We started digging, literally and digitally. Sarah scoured public records and social media. I handled the technical stuff. Within hours, we found that the expert report used by the HOA wasn't signed, stamped, or even real. The company listed Eco-Conversion Solutions was registered just 6 months ago under one name, Derek C.R., Malene's nephew. Then came the kicker, a $120,000 contract between the HOA and Derek's company paid in full before the job even started. Only one signature on it, Malene's. No board vote, no oversight. My wife's lake wasn't a hazard. It was their payday. I stared at that document, anger sharpening into something colder. Sarah saw it too. "Be careful, Tom," she warned. "She's not just a busybody, she's a thief." Thieves don't understand engineering, I thought. They only understand pressure. Out behind my property, hidden under an overgrown bush, there's a cast-iron cover I hadn't touched in 20 years. I pulled it open with a wrench, and there it was, the red valve. My old secret. Back in the early 2000s, the county had a water crisis. I'd built this lake not just for Eleanor, but as a HOA backup reservoir for emergencies. Off the record by handshake agreement. That valve connected my spring-fed lake directly into the county grid, feeding water to 3 towns if the main system ever failed. Nobody on today's council even knew it existed. And now, thanks to Malene, that entire safeguard was gone. I called the new water commissioner Peterson young guy, more politician than engineer. I explained the situation calmly, told him the backup system was offline. He brushed me off, said it was a civil matter with the HOA. That was his mistake. I realized I couldn't report the problem. I had to become the problem. That's when I called Mac, a retired fire captain old friend and the only man I knew who understood systems under pressure. He showed up after dark, tool bag in hand. "Let me guess," he said, grinning. "This ain't about a leaky faucet." We worked through this night, 2 old men crawling through maintenance lines and junction boxes deep in the woods. We didn't destroy anything, we just redirected. A few valve adjustments, a few subtle shifts in flow, enough to destabilize the pressure in the old housing loops downstream. It wouldn't break the system, but it would make it sing out of tune. 36 hours later, the music started. Calls flooded into the county, low-pressure sputtering taps, toilets that wouldn't refill. By evening, a boil water advisory was issued for 3 towns. The news ran red banners about a regional water emergency. At 10 that night, my phone rang. Peterson's voice was tight with panic. "Mr. Blake, we have massive pressure loss. My engineers can't find the cause. You said there was a backup system." I let him squirm a second. "Check your email," I said. He opened it while we were still on the call. I'd sent him the original engineering schematics and highlighted the watershed boundary. The line ran straight through my property, the same area Malene had trespassed and drained. "This wasn't just about my lake commissioner," I said quietly. "It was about your water, and you let them touch it." By the next morning, the HOA was in chaos. People who'd never cared about my lake were furious now that their faucets were dry. Malene tried to calm everyone down, blaming aging county infrastructure. But the crowd wasn't buying it. At the emergency meeting that night, someone shouted, "Let Tom speak," and suddenly every eye turned to me. I walked to the podium, slow, steady. "My name's Tom Blake," I said. "I designed the water system this town relies on, and I'm the man your HOA president called a nuisance." I told them everything, how Malene faked the report, paid her nephew, and destroyed a legally permitted reservoir. Then Sarah stepped up beside me and played a video on the big screen, Derek, drunk at a bar, bragging about getting paid $120,000 to drain the old man's lake. The crowd exploded. When the noise died down, I said one last thing. 20 years ago, I signed a lease with the county, $1 a year, granting them access to my reservoir as an emergency supply. That lease expires next week. If full restitution isn't made and if Malene and her co-conspirators don't resign immediately, I'll close the valve permanently. Silence. Then chaos. Board members started panicking. One, a nervous accountant named Bill, stood up and announced his resignation on the spot. 2 others followed. Malene was left alone, pale and shaking. The crowd shouted her down as she stumbled off stage straight into the arms of 2 sheriff's deputies waiting by the exit. They arrested her for fraud, environmental tampering, and endangering public utilities. I didn't smile. I just sat back down, feeling the weight of it all settle. By the next morning, the county came knocking Peterson and a lawyer this time. They weren't arrogant anymore. They asked what it would take to make things right. I told them restore the lake completely at the county's expense using a real engineering firm, and dissolve the HOA charter entirely. No more petty tyrants with clipboards. They agreed. When the news broke about Malene's arrest and her nephew's fake contracts, it spread across the state. The $120,000 payout became Exhibit A in a corruption case. The HOA's bank account was frozen. Her company, her nephew's blacklisted. A week later, the county engineering crew joined Mac and me by the old valve. We turned it slowly together. The system hummed back to life, the pressure gauges rising, water flowing again to every home. No drama, just quiet control. And that's where it ended the night the red valve turned and justice flowed back through the pipes. Sometimes you don't fight power with noise or fury. You fight it with pressure quiet, steady, and perfectly calculated.